Hello, everyone. Just we'll keep a few minutes. I see people are still coming in and join this webinar. I'm super happy to see all of you who registered. Good. So I have Marcel here, who is a surprise. Stay tuned to listen who this fellow is. And yeah, so let's start. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Adi Blecher. I'm the VP Marketing at Wisor AI, and I will be your moderator for this session. Today, we are talking about something that every freight forwarder running more than one office knows all too well, why scaling across branches is so much harder than it should be. And more importantly, what you can do about it. We have two incredible speakers with us. Margaliot, who are CEO here at Wisor, who works with freight forwarder every day on exactly these challenges, and Marcel, our surprise for today, Director of Operational and Digital Excellence at Rhenus Logistics, who brings the real-world operator perspective, someone who has actually lived through scaling a global forwarding operation. Marcel, great to have you with us. Welcome, Marcel. I would love to hear more about you in few sentences about you.
Okay, yeah, nice to meet you, everyone. I don't think I'm that incredible, so keep your expectations in check.
Incredible.
I'm working at Rhenus Logistics already for quite a while now. I've been through a lot of different positions. My long title now is just a combination of everything I've done before. I started with doing business process management abroad, was responsible for a country, then for a region, then for the whole globe, moving into country management, and now officially also responsible for the rest of the applications, basically making sure that everything runs smoothly between the business and the IT so that requirements are understood and managed well, and then handling our own development of IT applications as well as making sure with our partners that this runs very well. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. So before we dive in, a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, and we'll share the recording with everyone who registers. So if you have a colleague who couldn't make it, we've got them covered. Please use the Q&A box, not the chat, to send your question. Marcel, and I will get to as many as we can in the last 10 minutes. And if something resonates or you have reaction, feel free to use the chat. We love seeing that. All right, so let's get into that. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Adi. Thank you for everybody who joined. I'm really excited about this session. And also, again, thank you for Marcel, our surprise guest, who also joined. Let me share my screen and let's dive into it. So, one second. Perfect. So, as Adi mentioned, we're here to talk about how scaling, forwarding, operation across multiple branches. And by the way, when I'm talking about branches, the problem exists when you're talking about countries as well. And kind of like the problem with the statement that we saw initially is imagine this. What if every new branch would actually make your operation stronger, not weaker? What we've seen today, adding multiple branches, sometimes considered as a tax with their added complexity. And this is what we're here to discuss today.
So, let's talk about what that actually looks like inside an organization when it start to break down.
Yeah, sure. So we have slides for that. So the way we've seen it and what our data suggests is usually the first two branches, that's the easy part. But normally, the third branch also implies you're going on a different country. So things are going good. You're growing as a forwarder, you're expanding, and you want to go into additional country, whether it's through M&A or whether it's through opening a different branch. And this is where we're starting to see the problem, where each branch requires, it multiplies the amount of coordination that is needed between all the different moving parts. Local decisions are starting to diverge ahead from the HQ, and the complexity grows faster than the revenue. that's why we call it the additional branch tax.
Mhm. So, Marcel, you've been on the operator side of exactly this tension. Rhenus runs offices across, I believe, dozens of countries. Can you tell us, when you look at this tag of war between local speed and global control, how did Rhenus historically try to solve it, and where did it fell short?
I would say it's things that also changed in recent times. I mean, not just that recent, but also the past decade. Overall, we've been growing from a small company. We've been growing by naturally opening branches, but also by a lot of M&As. And the idea was always to keep the control within the branches or within the specific countries. You would like to have local heroes that can manage themselves, that bring in the profits. You have a profitable company, you buy it, and hopefully it continues to be profitable. And you just add them to your network, you give them more business, and it just all scales up well. And honestly, that has been working also quite well. I would say it's not the wrong strategy, but in the recent times, not that recent, but overall, a lot more things have become more transparent. There's overall a lot less profitability on a lot of trades. Things are much more transparent between the carriers and the customers directly. Big tenders are going out. We're talking about productivity. So it just falls short in regards of scalability, especially now talking about the new AI solutions, global frameworks, global application data. I mean, it's a big topic for many, many years already. All these things, of course, are more complex if everybody has their own systems, everybody has their own processes. And that's why a lot of companies shifted to having this kind of more iron grip, global systems, global setups, everything needs to be aligned, everything needs to be standardized. And also in our company, we're pushing forward with these kinds of initiatives. And I think the biggest thing here is to find the right approach and the right middle ground. Because if you do that too harsh and you too chokehold the branches, usually at least the regional and global teams cannot scale fast enough. You still need the kind of flexibility that the branches have, the knowledge that they have, and also the skill set and customers that they have in the end to survive as an organization. So I think finding the right way in between is what is most important and what has been giving us an edge in certain cases where we feel like, okay, we still can scale up, but we're still flexible enough. Sometimes maybe a bit too flexible. And that is my job in the end to bring that back together.
Nice.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think at the end of the day, having the struggle that we're talking about is how, from one hand, we utilize the information, the knowledge, the connection that comes with having a local branch, and without bearing the complexity or losing our value as an organization. So I can completely relate to that. And actually, moving on that, what we've seen is the way I see it today, till now, when forwarders have been going, they will have to kind of like choose whether they want to go with local speed, meaning I'm going to go get a lot of branches, going to give them full autonomy, uh, versus, okay, I have my procedures. I want to have full enforcement by HQ, and you couldn't live anywhere in between. You had to decide where you want to choose because there were different limitations in the way the industry built, in the terms of the IT stack and the general atmosphere. And that put forwarders in the point where you need to decide which approach you need to take.
Gotcha.
And what's the implications of those approaches? So for example, this is some of the folders we've been talking to, what we've seen is that a lot of folders do acquire and set up additional branches, but if they keep the centralized approach, then the turnaround time, specifically if we're talking about quotation and rate management and specific rates that only exist in specific silos, the turnaround time can be north of 24 hours. And at the end of the day, you might end up losing deal to your small local forwarder who doesn't have to go through that entire ordeal of asking for rates and quotes from HQ and making sure everybody's synced, and he can get back to the end customer for other quotes in under 2 hours. And I think we can all agree that one of the key attributes that decides whether we win or deal or not is how fast we answer our end customer.
Wow. That 24 hours wait is brutal, especially when a local competitor is quoting, I would say, in 2 hours, sometimes even less than that. Marcel, was there a specific moment or deal where that delay cost Rhenus a real business, something that made the team like think we have to fix this immediately?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, on the end, for us, it's not just also the delay of central pricing. I mean, it's also a question mark, do you have central pricing in the first place? It can be that you have maybe regional pricing, and then there's further, scaled down versions of that. And then overall is also the availability of charges on the other end, right? So if you don't even have the locals available, even if they're not changing, or if you have certain crises like now where you have a crisis globally in several cases and rates are changing very rapidly. So you want to be we want to be able to basically get this information as fast as possible and not run after people and wait for the other side of the world to wake up and give you this information. I would say the biggest thing where we see this is in our express business, because in the end, express air freight customers don't want to wait because it's urgent. That's why they're choosing express. So in the end, where we can see this especially is if when we implemented a few measures here in regards of having control of our regional products on these kind of items, and then slow down the speed, that we are less successful in our quotes. So even though we had better rates in the end, the problem was speed. So because we were slower then with better rates, actually the quotation success rate went down. So I think that was one of the biggest things. We were like, okay, speed is actually more important for specific business cases like spot quotes, SMEs, smaller businesses, than actually is the price. Of course, when we talk about global tenders and other kind of things, price is generally a very much deciding factor next to kind of quality of the service. But especially on these kind of smaller spot quotes and very important express shipments, you have speed as the key indicator for anything. So even a higher price, if we can get it out within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, that's actually quite a deciding factor for success.
Yeah.
When I completely agree, and
Yeah.
when we ran our analysis, and I agree, it's relevant for the small SMEs, it's relevant for the sport work. When we ran the analysis, I was sure that the driving factor will be pricing, will be level of service, will be all of that, but it was unanimous across everyone that we surveyed that first you need to be answering fast, bringing your data first to the end customer, and then the rest of the item comes into play.
Oh, man.
Fully agree.
Okay. So what do forwarders actually want? So ideally, as we go, we want one centralized governed rate system. We want real-time access to every branch, and we want to put guardrails in place. So we want to move fast on the edges while still aligning on our core value and our core processes. And what's the problem? What's driving us from reaching this nirvana of processes? So far, what we've seen is that IT has been the bottleneck. For years, technology was the limitation. From one hand, it wasn't flexible enough to give all the leeway and all the processes for local branches, or it wasn't structured enough to give full governance for HQ. That's why, and if I bring us back for the last two slides, folders had to choose which one they want just because of the strictness of technology. You had to choose whether you want to go consistency without speed or sys without consistency, never both. And that was due to the lack of the IT systems that were involved.
Yeah. Baran, we have one question from the audience here. So the same shipment, three different prices. That's not just a margin problem, that's a trust problem with customer. How often do you hear this from forwarders that you speak with? Is this exception or this is actually the norm?
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. It's the same shipment, three different prices. Sometimes they are actually taken from different prices, whether it's the spot rates that they use, the rate sheets, and so on. That's not an emerging problem. That's a trust problem with customer. How often do you hear it from forwarders you speak with? Is this an exception or this is actually the norm?
So first of all, I think trust is everything. At the end of the day, We are people who are selling to other people. So you definitely don't want to betray the trust in the prices that you give, specifically when it comes to dollars. And that's even adding to the complexity because due to the rigidness that the IT platforms had so far, it did came to a situation where you had different prices, where you had to choose whether I want to go with the flexibility around the surcharges of the local branches, or do I want to enforce the HQ governance that sometimes didn't met the specific requirements of the local branches, specifically if we go into different countries all over the world. So I completely agree with that, and I think that's where we're starting to see the advances in the system that are much more flexible, making sure that the prices are correct, the prices are aggregated correctly, the governance around the pricing and around the structure is maintained while supporting the end branch's needs.
Mhm. And Marcel, when you hear Ron describe this ideal state, I would say one governed rate system, real-time access for every branch, like it feels like too good to be true, right? Does it that match what Rhenus was looking for, and how far off was that from reality when you started this journey?
I would say we've been quite far from in certain places and other places where we're closer than I was thinking initially. But overall, I think the biggest challenge was always the availability of the rates at a certain point in time, and also coming back a bit to the question that was asked in regards of having a contacting. This is what I understood at least from the question was like contacting three different branches of the same forward and getting three different prices. I mean, that is it is honestly cannot even be like it's a matter of trust as a customer, of course, but it would have been very well possible because they work on different rate sheets. Yeah, like they did not have a globalized, centralized rate database. One guy was quoting with the rates from the past months, another person was having his charges from the current months. So I think it's very, very realistic kind of situation that we have been experiencing, and definitely causes frustrations for kind of customers where you're like, okay, why? I just asked your colleagues in a different city a
Yeah.
few miles away, and they're getting a different price is of course a problem. So definitely can understand. And talking about this was also one of the big reasons to make sure that everybody utilizes the same rates. Now, that is also when we talk about guardrails, because in the end, the markup is still decided at a certain level, right? So it could still be possible, even utilizing all these platforms, that the customer would receive different kind of prices. So it's not a beat all this solution. In the end, it's still a human that needs to make that decision. But I would say it's a way more informed decision because there's a certain markup levels in place. You are working on the same rate, so the differences might not be that big anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. So why is it possible now? So we talked about kind of like the choose that forwarders had to do between the authority to the branches and the governance by HQ. And the way we see it, technology was part of the limitation process. And what do we see now with all the advances in technology in AI is that you no longer have to choose. Technology is much more flexible enough to accommodate for all of those. So there's no more one config per region. There's no more manual rates entry. Everything is really tied up into those PDFs and the Excels. The system are much more flexible in reading all of the data, all of that fragmented data, and really holding that one centralized source of truth that all the different branches can utilize and work with. And by the way, that's the point where, Marcel, I think you mentioned it earlier. Technology is great. And again, coming from a technical background, I love technology. But as you mentioned, we have people in the branches and we have superheroes. And what we've seen that technology can do now is even go ahead and multiply those superheroes because not everybody's a superhero in the branches, but do with the complexity that the advances in AI are offering, we can offer all of those with AI extracting grades from any sources, where we can incorporate policy within our code. We can have guardrails, but use them not as gatekeepers, but actually more of kind of like adjusting the prices and utilizing the information coming from HQ, not limiting the end branches.
Yeah, well, Marcel, if we already raise it, so and people is the most important assets that we have within the company. When you saw what AI native system could actually do, what was the thing that surprised you the most? Like, what did you think wasn't possible before that suddenly was? And by the way, how actually your team reacted to that?
I would say not all so surprising because I mean AI solutions have been around for a while. I would say what was very positively accepted and also surprising a little bit was the quality. In the end, the feature was more or less what we expected, but I would say the biggest thing for us was the quality that we had because in the past we have robotics, we had other things that were in place to bring rates from one place to another. But in the end, for us, the biggest thing was the quality that we get from making the rates that we have in unstructured sources, be it files, be it other systems, be it in our different countries, bringing them into one kind of central place and having them the right amount of quality without really a lot of effort through manual work from people, having the rates right away available. So I would say the speed and the quality that was delivered there was actually quite positively a surprise for me. Yeah, so that I think was the biggest thing for me that was really well received, and also for the teams that have been working with it, because that was one of the biggest concerns. Okay, we have a new system in place. Yeah, what about all our rate sheets? We need to make sure rates are correct because in the end you need to make sure the quotations are correct. So that was one of the biggest deals where they said this would be a lot of work, but it ended up actually being one of the smaller parts of work in regards of this whole setup and the rollout of this kind of system.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the easiest way to lose a customer is to get the data wrong or the prices wrong.
Would not be the first time.
Yeah, but hopefully the last. So, but yeah, we do see that, as you mentioned, the 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 word in the technology is not new, but the structure of it and the quality of it, that's the advances that AI has brought us to that areas. So, if I'll take that, a question for the audience. All right, how do you know is your operation built for scale? So we're asking ourselves four questions. Um, are we fast enough in responding to quotes? Because we all agree that answering and answering fast, ideally answering first, definitely one of the key attributes, specifically for the spots and SMEs growth. Second, I would ask, does your policy help the end customer or slow them down? Are branches empowered or blocks? Superheroes need wings. They don't want us to stop them. We want to make sure that we're actually empowering them and that we're empowering the rest of those employees in the branches. And do we actually control our global pricing logic? Because having all in one centralized place, that's definitely a start. But there's a ton of logic, there's a ton of information that we gathered over the years that we need to see that we're controlling that both on a global and a local level.
Well, I encourage everyone watching this generally answer. This is in your head right now. One says three red answers means your operation aren't built to scale yet. I'm curious how many people on this call have four greens. Probably not so many. When you started, Marcel, what happened in in Rhenus? Like, how many reds did you have?
I would say it was definitely two more in the red and maybe one somewhere in the middle on the yellow light, not yet green. So I would say the kind of things that were already okay. That's what I mentioned before. We didn't really block the countries, but we also didn't empower them, right? So that's I think what is the goal. It's not just also like the regional and global organization are there to empower your local organization, right? So while of course we want to enforce these kind of guardrails, we want to empower them, and definitely I would say, yeah, there was two or three at least. All of these would be red or yellow when I started, for sure.
Nice. Thanks for the honest answer.
Yeah, I think if we ask also people in the branches will come up, see there's a lot of colors of rainbows. There'll probably be a purple there and a green there and a blue there. But yeah, it is a challenging question. Um, so as we mentioned, this is for all your Formula One fans in the audience. this is where we want to go for it, Brady. We have a very old machine where we don't have to choose anymore, but we can enjoy both worlds. From one hand, we can get full governance without losing the local and flexibility and the empowerment of local people. And I think that using and utilizing the new technology and AI out there is much more possible.
I love it. You can now have both full governance without losing local flexibility. That's the, I would say, competitive edge. So yeah, Ron Marcel, thank you. That was a generally practical session and a quick one, I would say. So before we go to a Q&A, I want to give everyone watching one clear next step. If anything you heard today resonate, whether it's the rate chaos, the branch inconsistency, or the self-assessment questions, the best thing you can do is just to look and how it looks in your operation, book a 30-50 minute session with us, and you can see it like live. Of course, not a pitch. It's most probably will be a diagnosis. Yeah, so let's go to the question. We have about a few minutes and we still have the time for that. So I can see a few questions already coming in. You have a few, let's wait few more seconds to have more questions, but I'll throw one by myself, like Ran, for someone who's just opening their second branch right now, what's the signal most important thing to get right before the branch tree?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question because, as I mentioned, I think I would, by the way, I would put the point not at the third branch, but I would say once you move out of your core country, that's where the complexity starts. So I would ask myself two questions. Assuming the third branch is within a new country, I would ask myself, what kind of local, whether it's local processes, local charges, or what kind of a local uniqueness does that third branch bring? And I need to be as much aware of it as possible. And on the other hand, what are the core attributes that I want to maintain for me as a company, for the HQ? What is more important for me, both as values and the way we treat customers and the way we price customers? So answering those two questions will help you decide where you want to put your kind of like thumbs on the scale because on the three, maybe four branches, you're still able to give more leeway into the branches side, but then later you need to put more effort into governance side. So I would just start with asking those two questions.
Mhm. Marcel, do you want to add to that?
Well, I would say it's most relevant to bring the right people because looking at your first two branches, there's definitely your key people that know your system, that know the culture, that know the processes, and bringing these people into the new branch is what is most important because as Van already said, you need to know what's different, but you also need to know what you want to have to remain the same. And that's in the end bringing these people in and matching them with the new kind of crop of people that you're setting, basically planting the seed for a new branch, especially in a different country where you're less in control because less of the general people that have founded the first two branches with you that are maybe in a closer circle are there. So I think it's important to bring the right people into the new branch and make sure that the culture and the systems are kept in place as much as possible, of course giving the local requirements that are needed.
By the way, you see the balance between us. I'm coming from IT, so I'm thinking processes. Marcel is a people's guy, and we're in a people's industry, and he keep reminding me it's all about the people. Technology is just the empowerment, but I 100% agree with Marcel. At the end of the day, we're people selling to people, so having your core team is definitely the first thing that you need to put emphasis on.
I think for me, why I always talk about people is I think it's more interesting than not, especially because we have a topic also about AI, and a lot of people are afraid of it. But where we are now with AI, you will not achieve full automation with 100% quality. So it's there to enable people. So you need actually still people to, it's just way more efficient. Every job can be maybe 10 times the amount of, you can do it 10 times the amount of work that one person could do, but you still need someone to control certain levels, because at certain places you need this kind of quality that AI cannot give you yet. They can give you a lot of quality, 80, 90, 95%, but you need sometimes the 100% quality for your customer. So I think people do not need to be so afraid about this. And for me, working 10 years or most of my career that I've been working in this organization on change management, it is all about people, right? Like when we come with
Yeah.
our new systems, be it a system from our partners, be it a system that we bring in house, or even just a new feature, the challenge that I have to explain to my other colleagues in the management is always why it takes a while to bring something new. It's like, oh, we have a great new tool, we have something, yeah, but you need to change the mindset of the people. Instead, you still have people that operate these systems. So, especially bringing like simple solutions, like what we talked about with tooling, like having a simple solution that people can easily adopt. It's way better to have a carrot than the stick, right? You still want to have something that if they can assume a tool, even though it's new, because new is already a barrier, even if it's better, it's already a barrier. But if you can then show them, okay, it's simpler, it's more productive, like it's not there to replace you, it's there to actually replace all the repetitive manual work that you're doing. I think that is why I always come back to people, because that is the biggest part of my role,
100%.
to actually convince the people and make them work, let's say, enjoy actually what they're doing and be efficient at what they're doing, because that in the end is the interest of every company, to make money, to be efficient in what we do. I guess that
Um,
is a
that,
bit
I,
of
I completely connect to it. And we have a saying, it was put in by Raz, our CEO, that at the end of the day, again, I'm not don't want to offend anyone in the audience, but all forwarders are the same. At the end of the day, they're moving boxes and containers from one side of the world to the other. But what makes each forwarder unique is the relationship that they're building between their team, with their end customers, with their partners. And luckily for us, now technology, as discussed so far, can take all of those or a lot of those manual work and leave forwarders do what they do best, which is building their meaningful relationship with their customers using the people. So I completely agree with that.
Great. We have a question from the audience. How can we handle the process without breaking the standard workflows? How to ensure the pricing consistency across branches? Who wants to answer it?
I can take the first part of it with the standard workflows, and then maybe the second part, the consistency in the system, is something that Ran can chime in on.
Mhm.
So from my side, the way that we do it is by simply rolling out the system in a light way. So we basically bring on the system into all the different countries. We brought it in 3 months into 8 countries right now, with 2 more upcoming. So there's a few things that we needed based on local requirements. So Ran knows what I'm talking about. So basically there we had this kind of topic of adding additional things that are needed, but we're also not enforcing right away a clear standard. So we have a more flexible permission setup with just specific guardrails, so that the branches can still stick within some ways that they used to. That is maybe not a global standard, but more a localized setup, but they are getting used to the system. And then it's basically, you're fishing a bit. And once you have the bait there, people are all in the system, all the quotations are there, then you can start reining certain things. You can restrict certain permissions. You might only want specific amount of people to quote. Then you can start also adding further items in regards of availability of rates. Maybe only suggested sellings are available instead of the raw values for customers. So these are the kind of things that we are playing with. There's a lot of, I would say, knobs to turn that we are applying. So initially it's just, okay, this is what you had before. Now you have this platform where you can do it in, and you just work on that. And then we start tightening the screw step by step when you have everybody there and they get a lot of benefits already. So it doesn't hurt so much to adjust a little bit of their old ways. That is at least how we are approaching this whole rollout scenario for us.
Yeah, and as for the second part of the question, like for me, two words comes to mind. First of all is flexibility, and second is access. So in terms of flexibility, you need to have the, first of all, people who are flexible enough to work on kind of like a dual environment, but mainly an IT stack, which is not limiting the team, but actual flexible enough to empower the team. So that's one. And second is the access. You want to make sure that we are actually empowering the people at the branches. So we give them access to the rates, we give them access to our selling structure through the system, and that's actually helping them instead of limiting them. So I would say having the system which is flexible enough to impose the right selling structure across the different branches while obliging to the local constraints and giving access, empowering them to utilize that correctly.
Thank you. This is great.
I love this question, by the way. It's a
Yeah,
great
I
one.
love it too. So bring more, like guys. I'm waiting for more questions. By the way, we have a couple of minutes. So if I need like to get from you guys a final thought that you would leave the audience with, like one sentence, what would be like your super advice to them?
For advice.
Yeah. Think about that.
Marcel, I would let you go first.
Think about this
I
question.
have something. Yeah, sure.
We have one more questions from the audience. So
Okay, then we wait. We do that question first.
think about my question. Can the branches maintain their own local rates while still following the global pricing strategy?
Yeah, I think that's where the flexibility comes in. And I think that's where that's where the shift happens, where adding another branch is not a tax, but it's actually an added value. I don't want the branch to only manage the local rates and only him enjoying that. I want the other branches to have the possibility of enjoying those rates as well. So definitely, I think that's where technology and the flexibility around the technology, because at the end of the day, there is some differences. We live in a very fragmented industry, and there's definitely differences in pricing structure between different countries, definitely between different carriers. So having a system that is flexible enough to maintain the local rate database while sharing it with global and kind of like have a free flow of data is crucial when you're thinking about, okay, what's the IT stack that I need to do, that I need to have in order to go and to grow with different branches and different countries.
I love
Maybe
it.
to add on for me to give a bit more of a practical answer on this, like how we actually engage with it from our side right now. We have simply a central pricing team that is collecting the rates from the different local offices and then updates these rates within the system. So basically, technically, it is the local rates that are available for everyone. And then the central pricing team also actually offers a rate with a markup. So there's a suggested selling that they're also basically bringing on. And that is what I mentioned. I would say the configurations are there for you to make the choice if people are available to see everything, if you need a central team, or if you simply also want local people to maintain these rates. In the end, the user is still available also then to make final adjustments on their own if you allow them so. So basically, I would say the flexibility is given in the system. So we have been not running into these kind of issues. For us, it's more about what we talked about, local speed and flexibility versus global control. So that is basically where we're also trying to find our way and fine tuning to not block them, but rather empower them. However, of course, I assume as fellow forwarders on our end, it's about also a lot of kind of carrier strategies where we want our branches to be quote carrier neutral, so we can choose actually which carrier it goes on. So you need to be a bit more flexible with your rates. So overall, that is how we handle it right now. And I might change my mind, but right now we have been running fine for the last few months in that regard.
This is nice. I hope that we answer it as requested. So, guys, have you thought about my like the last sentence to the audience, like one of wisdom insight that you can give and provide to your audience here? I would say that you already mentioned it. Like freight forwarder, they have like a magic on the way that they network with others, with other people, with other agents. So I think that the empowering their people, it's like the best thing that they can do by giving them the technology, the AI, the implementation of everything, like to do things more in scale. So I would say, Marcel, you mentioned it. Ran, you mentioned it before. So this is like a key factor that I recommend everyone here that are listening to us to adopt.
Yeah, and I encourage everybody if you have like challenges, specifically if we're looking at the IT side of things of growing, reach out to us. We would love to talk and kind of like share more from our experience on that areas.
Exactly. So Thank you both. This was exactly the kind of conversation that makes you think differently about the problem you've been living with. For everyone on the call, the recording will be in your inbox within 24 hours. If you want to continue the conversation or see Wisor in action, book a demo at Wisor. There is no commitment, guys. You can jump on a call if you want our advice. You are more than welcome to do that. We are not here to sell you. And thank you, all of you. Join us today. See you next time.
Thank you, Adi.
Thank you, Marcel.
Again, thank you, Marcel, for joining me
For
on this
having
call.
me.
Join us.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.